Hey there! Do you want to learn how to memorize songs easily and faster? Good, because that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's do this! First, I want to talk about the 3 types of memory and why this is important for you to know. Second, I'm going to give you a step-by-step example of how I would go about learning and memorizing a piece. And then finally, I'll give you some tried and true tips, at least ones that have worked for me. The 3 types of memory are muscle memory, auditory, and cognitive. Muscle memory is kind of what we first think about when you're practicing a piece. You basically do it over and over, and your mind and your muscles get together and kind of say, when we play this song, this is where your fingers should go, or in the case of your vocals, what we should sing. When you practice a piece over and over, and then you could do it without looking at the music, that's mostly muscle memory. Now, the reason we don't want to depend completely on muscle memory is that it's kind of dependent on the situation you're in. If you're in a room and you practice a piece and you can remember it, it doesn't mean when you go out to play it in front of other people under a little bit of stress and maybe different environments, other distractions, that you'll be able to do it. Matter of fact, I'll vouch for this. I have a very clear memory as a younger dude practicing a classical guitar piece over and over and over till I could play it flawlessly. But then I was put in front of about 30 other students, and between those students looking at me and the different environment, I froze up right about the middle of the piece. It was very embarrassing. But muscle memory is important, and it's particularly useful when combined with auditory and cognitive. Now, auditory memory is just like it sounds. You hear something and you remember it. Of course, the more you hear it and the more emotionally charged it is, the easier and quicker it is to remember it. For us music people, that usually happens by listening to a song over and over, but it also happens when we play a song over and over. We connect the sound that we're hearing with the muscle memory. And then there's cognitive memory, which means using your brain, intellect. Now, this can really support the muscle and auditory memories, but for most guitar players, this is usually on the weaker side. And when I say intellect, I'm talking about kind of understanding how the piece of music works. It's the key it's in, the chords that you're using, especially for guitar players, the chord progression. One of the most important things is to understand common chord progressions and to identify them, as well as any other patterns in a piece of music. When you see the patterns, and you go ahead and practice and you connect the auditory with the muscle memory, it's much easier to remember the piece. When you're playing and you can't quite feel where that next chord should be, you go into your brain and see, it's part of a common chord progression, and the next chord is, and that strikes your muscle memory and your auditory memory and gets it back in gear. Now, that doesn't mean you should drop everything and just go out and learn a bunch of music theory. I would recommend just using what you got, and you probably know a little more than you give yourself credit for, and adding to it little by little as you learn new pieces. Now, these are all great in theory, but I'm going to show you a step-by-step process of how I would go about learning a very simple piece. And the key is, I'm using all 3 forms of memory. They support each other, and the 3 together are much stronger than any one individually. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. The idea is not to teach you how to play the song, but rather to show you how these work together. We have a very simple folk song, and I'm using this just to demonstrate how to go about memorizing the song quickly. The first thing I want to do is use my cognitive. That means look it over and what can I learn about the song intellectually? Now, first of all, I can tell what key it's in this case, the key of D. I can tell by the key signature and also the chords. Now, I'm looking for any common patterns or any common chord patterns. I don't see anything other than D, G, and A7, which is in a key, very often the 3 chords that are used in the key. But I can see there are some patterns going on here. I see the chords D, G, and D, D, G, and D again. And then I see D, G, A7, D, G, A7. I can see a repeating pattern down here. As a matter of fact, I've kind of give you some hints. I can divide this song into 4 sections. One being the chords D, G to D. The second section is the chords D, G to A7. The third section was exactly the same as 1, D, G to D. And then the 4th section is different because I'm playing a chord every other beat instead of 4. It drags out longer in the first part. So now the second thing is to look to see how I can divide the song up. Often I look for like a chorus and a verse or chorus, verse, and bridge. In this case, I can't really call anything the chorus and the verse, but I can kind of see there's some natural divisions. At least this main part and this last part are two sections that I could work on. Now, once you've kind of looked it over, use your intellect, think about what kinds of patterns there are in the song, it's time to go ahead and play the song and connect that with your listening, your auditory. So that means play the song, and as you play through it, think about how what you're hearing connects with what you've looked at, the key it's in, the chord patterns. You'll even hear patterns that you didn't notice by sight at first. So once you play through the song, and you might want to play through it a few times, it's time to start working on the sections. So let's say we're going to work on this first part. I'll start playing Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya. And then I'll take away the sheet music and see if I can play that without the music. If that's okay, then I'll go on to section number 2. Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya. It ends on A7 now. I'll play that without the sheet music. Then I'll play the two together without the music. Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya. You like my fake guitar playing there? See, my hands up in the air. Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya. So once I get that, keep going on. In this case, I'd probably practice this last section a little bit more because I can see it goes a little faster. So I'd play with the music, then I take away the music, don't go get it, pull back the music, try it again, take it away again, and then try adding it to the rest of the chords. Once I've done that and I can play through the entire song by memory, then I would come back at it in intervals. I would assume that I'm going to forget it and come back at it maybe even the same day a few times at first. But then over time, I'd practice it several times during the week. Now, it's common to have just the words and the chords without the actual music or measures. And this is Greensleeves, another common song, simple song, with a few more chords than that Kumbaya. I can look at this, and again, I can first of all look to see what key it's in. I'm going to guess the key of E minor. I'll know more when I try to play it on the guitar. But I can see it starts in E minor and ends on E minor. That's a good cue. And B7 is a common chord in the key of E minor. It's the 5 chord in the key of E minor. Now I divide the song into sections. Fortunately for me, each of the line looks like a section. Alas, my love, you do me wrong to cast me off so discourteously, and so on. I'd probably assume each of these lines are a section. I don't have to know that for sure until I hear it. Now I'd play through the whole song, and once I played through it, I'd be pretty sure it's in the key of E minor. I could hear it. Kind of just feels like home once I play it. And I could also tell that each of these lines will be a good section to work on one at a time. Now I'd play through it. I'd get to where I could play that first line. I'd take away the music, and once I could play it without looking, I'd do the second line and so on, put the two together until I got to the end. Now here's some additional tips that have worked for me over the years. The most important thing is to start simple. Build up step by step. Start with very simple songs, work at memorizing them, and then start adding more and more complex songs. Like anything else, the more you do it, the easier it gets. Now, another thing I do almost every single time is to write out the chord progression on paper. I mean, that's a great way to memorize things in general, and sometimes I'll write it out a couple of times, partly because I make mistakes, but also because I just want the repetition. Now, what I do when I'm not at my guitar is I'll rehearse a song in my head. Yeah, I'll visualize it. It's an audio thing. I hear it in my head. It works for me. I suggest giving it a try and see. The more you do it, the easier it gets. And number 4 is focus. This is something I see students take for granted. Put your attention and your focus on what you're doing, and it'll go faster. You'll memorize it faster. That might mean finding a place with less distractions if you can. Now, tip number 5 is something I use to kind of test myself. I'll play it slower than it can reasonably sound good, but it kind of helps me just feel each of the motions. And then I can see how well I can actually play the piece. I'll particularly go to a part of the song that I think I need to work on. I play it really slow, pick it up, and then slow it down again. Pick it up, and then slow it down again. And the 6th tip maybe is kind of obvious, but do it a little at a time regularly. The more you use your muscle memory, the better it works. That combined with starting with small steps and building up, right? It's how people develop their regular muscles in the gym or in sports. When you're ready, try recording the song. And I don't mean when you got it perfect. I mean when you feel like you can do it justice to pull out an iPhone or your computer if you're using that. It helps you on several levels. One, I think it helps you focus. It helps me focus. But but also you'll kind of see where my weaknesses are, and I'll go back and listen to it and then practice some more, and this seems to really work for me. I'll often combine that with writing out the chord progression, playing it from the chord progression on paper, and then pulling it away and then trying it without. So what about the lyrics? Well, I don't do that very often. I don't learn songs that I have to sing and play. Sometimes, yes, and I do have experience with that, but I'm not the expert here. I will say I know some things that have worked for me. One is simply writing out the lyrics, and I'll write them out several times. That seems to help. And another thing, which again is kind of obvious, is listening to the song over and over on YouTube and singing along with it. That helps me get the lyrics without having to worry about the guitar part. Another kind of fun thing I like to do is to record the chord progression on the guitar and then play it back and sing along with it. This helps me focus on my singing and get it right, as well as help remember the lyrics. Well, that's it for now. I hope this video helped you out. If it did, I appreciate a thumbs up. And if you're not sure where you should be spending your time to get the fastest results, sign up for my free guitar success checklist. After answering a few questions, I'll send you a personalized report with recommendations. It'll tell you where to spend your time to get focused progress with your guitar playing. Click the link below, or you can visit my website directly at www.tomasmichaud.com. I'll see you again soon. Bye.